Union Summit is underway in the capital, Nouakchott. The summit is expected to adopt the AU reforms document as proposed by current Chair, Rwandan President Paul Kagame. We now cross live to our correspondent, Sarah Kimani. Sarah, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the program. So, the AU Summit taking place in Mauritania, a lot on the cards, but one of the issues is the AU reforms. Tell us a little bit about what's in this document.
Good afternoon from Nouakchott, the capital of Mauritania, where the 31st Heads of States Summit gets underway beginning tomorrow. Now, tomorrow we expect that African heads of state will meet here, and we expect that this evening President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa will be among our leaders who will arrive here. Tomorrow, on Saturday, the head of state of France, Emmanuel Macron, will be here, and he will be addressing the summit. We expect that he will focus on the issue of migration out of the continent. It's not a coincidence that he will be here in Mauritania, because this is one of the gateways out of the continent and into Europe. We understand that he will be discussing the migration crisis and what the continent's leaders can do to stop young people from making the dangerous cross through the Sahara into Europe, and also making the dangerous cross through the Atlantic Ocean. We understand just this year alone, more than 1,000 young people, mostly from Africa, have died while making the crossing into Europe. But we also understand that one of the issues that may be discussed is a controversial issue of Europe paying African countries to keep migrants from crossing into Europe. Also, top on the agenda here is the ratification of the African Free Continental Trade Area, which only 4 countries have ratified. We understand that by the end of this week, at least 4 more countries will ratify. But we also understand that Nigeria and South Africa are finally going to sign the agreement that will create a market of at least 1 billion people with a GDP of $3 trillion. Now, the importance of this African Free Continental Trade Area, as has been discussed before, is to create a market that will create jobs and allow the free movement of persons across the continent, but also create jobs, and especially for the young people who are said to be the ones who are restless and leaving the continent in search of better pastures and in search of jobs and in search of livelihoods out of the continent. We also expect that the conflicts across the continent will be discussed. Topping the agenda will be the elections in Zimbabwe, the transition that is ongoing in Ethiopia, but also the long-running conflict in South Sudan. Just this week, we saw rebel leader Riek Machar and South Sudan President Salva Kiir meeting in Sudan to try and see if they can close ranks and end the conflict that has been running in that country since December 2013. Also on the agenda is the reforms at the African Union. As we speak now, 75% of the funding that comes into the African Union comes from donors. And so President Paul Kagame, the chairperson of the African Union, has been speaking to African leaders on how they can begin a tax of 0.2% on all imported goods into the continent. And this, he says, will be able to fund the activities of the African Union, including peacekeeping missions, including the just formed CDC, which takes care of emergencies and diseases that break out of the continent. Take, for example, when there was an Ebola outbreak and Africa sent out doctors across the West African region to be able to help in dealing with such an issue. Such issues, the continent saying that it wants to be able to fund itself and to take care of itself. So quite a full tray for the heads of state who will be meeting here beginning tomorrow. Back to you in studio from Mauritania.
Sarah, thanks very much indeed, and that's where we'll leave it. Sarah Kimani giving us an update ahead of this 31st Ordinary Summit of the African Union, which is taking place in Nouakchott in the Mauritanian capital. And then that's quite a list of things that the delegates will be looking at. But the theme of the conference, winning the fight against corruption, a sustainable path to Africa's transformation. And that's just one big theme, but there's so many, as she said, and we'll keep you abreast of developments taking place out there in Mauritania.